Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Introduction to Google Forms virtual PD session. Today, we're going to be looking at the basics of a Google form. And I have to tell you that when I first started in this job, I found like I didn't have time to learn about Google Forms. I knew that a lot of people were using them, but it was just something I didn't have time to learn. And I'll tell you right now that I wish that I had taken the very few minutes that it takes to sort of get going with Google Forms a lot earlier in my job, because it has not only been a time saver, but it's been transformative, and it doesn't require a lot of learning and a lot of practice. You get the hang of it after it's pretty intuitive, and you get the hang of it as soon as you get started with it. And as you become more comfortable with it, you'll see multiple areas in both your professional and personal lives where you can use Google Forms. And so I really do encourage you to take a look at how to use Google Forms in your classroom or in your practice. And trust me when I tell you that not only will it make you a more efficient learner, it certainly is going to, I think, have you think about how you do things and how you can access data and use that data to inform your next steps in an entirely different way. So with all things Google, you can find it under the New tool in your Google Drive. And it's always located on the second sheet, which really drives me nuts because it's probably one of the most commonly used Google tools that I use, but there it is. It's always on your second page. So you click on Google Forms. And this is what your Google form looks like before you start making it your own. So some of the questions I get asked, what kind of questions can you have? It defaults to multiple choice, but the questions are getting to be the algorithms behind this program are becoming smarter and smarter. So as you start to type your questions, it's actually going to recognize the type of question you're asking. But it defaults to multiple choice. But you also have the option of having a short answer reply. For those of you that might consider using this for feedback or for some form of assessment, you have the option to do a paragraph response, which gives you a large space in which the participants can write their answer. There's check boxes, and that's really handy when the participant might provide you with more than one answer. If there's a lot of options for that person to choose from, and it takes up a lot of real estate on the form, you might wish to turn it into a drop-down option so that a lot of space isn't taken up on the form. It now allows you to directly upload a file as a response. It gives you an option to do a linear scale, which I really like, in terms of, on a scale of 1 to 5, what is your comfort level with something, or what was the level of difficulty for this challenge? So it gives you some insight into the person's sort of feelings towards something. And so it does give you a lot of different options. And then regardless of which type of question you ask, it generates all that data automatically and makes a spreadsheet. So once you do the questions, every time someone participates with the form, the data is automatically generated for you on this one place where then you can go back and analyze your data and move on to your next step. And that's what I love about it, because we are all about working smarter, not harder. If I'm asking you to try something new, I want to make sure that it improves your life in some way. And I promise you that this will help make your life a little bit smoother. It helps you keep track of your data. It also organizes your data. So if you are someone who has to make a presentation, your students want to present their findings to their colleagues, to their classmates, or to the school principals, or to the school community, it does actually do some pretty easy data generation feedback for you. So here's an example of one that I had done earlier. So here was one that went out in the beginning of the year saying, hey, do you want to participate in virtual PD? And what kind of PD do you want? So it broke down for me all of the different schools that replied by color. So I can see here that 22% of my respondents came from BA Parker. Okay, so just, again, it gives you nice pie charts. It also broke down the different types of responses that I got from people, and telling me that 66% of the respondents wanted to learn more about Google Read and Write. There's, a good split here between Google Docs and slides. There's some, virtual learning in the VLE PD that people want to attend. So it gives me an idea of which ones I should have focused on first. And then it breaks down the individual comments as well. Here's another example. So again, a pie chart. In this case, again, one of the questions asked which school the respondents were from. And so in this case, I know that almost 35% of my respondents came from Marjorie Mills. And then I specifically designed my form to based on the user that would be participating. So the questions were geared to either a student response or a staff response. And in this case, just over half of the respondents of this survey were staff. So very clearly and quickly, I can determine how many people and what from what category are responding to my questions. And then here's a breakdown of the answers. And if I want to then now dig deeper into my information, this little green button right here takes me to the spreadsheet where all of that information is housed. And I depend on these spreadsheets. And when I actually have a form that's out and I'm wanting to know about the information, I'll just freeze this tab on my computer. And if you all remember, maybe you don't know yet, if you right click on any of your tabs and click Pin Tab, you can't close that tab. It doesn't go missing because we often end up at the end of our workday with all these tabs, and it's very easy to accidentally click off a tab. So I'll pin my tab, and then throughout the day, I will simply click Refresh. And then because it's a live form, this form will be updated every time somebody responds. And so I get up-to-the-minute results on my desktop. Okay. And again, for those of you that aren't familiar with the pinning, once you're done with that page, whatever it is, and you don't want it to be permanently stored on your desktop, you just simply right click and click Unpin Tab. And you can see the difference. Once I've unpinned the tab, there's an X there that will allow me to close off the tab. But when I pin it, that X is missing. And so there's no way for me to close that tab accidentally. But this is the spreadsheet that gets automatically generated. So it gives me each one of the columns, and I can, then decipher whatever it is I'm looking to dig deeper into based on this spreadsheet. Okay, so how do we make a Google form? Well, the first thing you want to do is give it a name to stay organized. So we're going to say a practice form. And as soon as you click on the name form, it will take the title from up here and include it in the title form here. It says form description down here. I tend not to do that. I mean, it's pretty, I send the link out in an email. I give the reason for the form in the email, or it's pretty self-explanatory. But sometimes, if I want to give more details about the session that we're using the data in, I might give some details here. And regardless, it just is a little bit of an opportunity for you to describe the form if you want to. So here is where you can put more details about the form. So that might be helpful for your participants to have a clearer idea or maybe further instruction. So again, we've got an untitled question here. As soon as you click on untitled question, you have to ask, what do I want to know? So the first question you might want to consider is, do you want the respondent's name? So keep in mind when people do provide a name, will it change the way they answer? So when it comes to student work and things like that, I always ask for the name. Or if I'm collecting participation data for an upcoming PD session, of course, I want to know specifically who's coming. So I might say last name. And you can see the form automatically changed it to short answer. I didn't have to select from the drop-down menu. I don't know who's going to possibly respond to this form, so that's fine. Now, if this is something I really need, I might select the required button, and I just click on the little button that's beside required, and it slides over and it becomes purple. This means that they can't submit the form unless that question has been submitted. So we've often done online forms or for work or for a personal life, and you go to hit submit, and if there's an error, so for example, you didn't provide your phone number or your postal code, it'll give you a big error message to say you need to go back and complete question number 7. This is essentially the same thing. You will not be able to submit the form unless all of the required questions are submitted. So that can be handy. I tend to make my questions required unless it's like an other question, like if you'd like to provide me with more feedback, here's the space in which you can do it. I wouldn't make that a required question, but just to make sure that somebody doesn't skip over a question that I need, I do tend to make them required. Okay, if you're going to have a lot of these types of questions, you can just select duplicate, and it copies the exact same question from before. And I'm going to change this now to my first name. And you can see how easy that was because I automatically had the question. I just had to change that one part. You can see as I move on to the next question, beside last name is a red asterisk, and that lets you know that that question is required. Okay. Now, so we're moving on to our next question, and we just simply click the plus sign, and it lets us have a line for our next question. So we're going to ask, what is your favorite color? So this might be an open-ended question. You're open to any answer. So you would just put down short answer, and we'll make that required, and that's done. But what if you were doing something like a pizza lunch and you didn't necessarily want to have a million different types of pizzas that you needed to order because you wanted to keep it fairly simple? So you don't necessarily want to make it an open-ended question. You want the participants' interest to be there and to be recognized, but you don't want to have, at the end of the day, to have to order 15 separate pizzas. So we're going to give them a choice, but it's limited. So we're going to ask them, what is your favorite pizza topping? So in this case, we're going to ask them if they want pepper and cheese, all dressed, ham and pineapple, and let's say peppers, or vegetarian. So you're giving people an option, but it's limited. And when you give it to them as a multiple choice question, they can only select one of these questions. Okay. If you're going to ask them a question that you want all the feedback, all of the possible choices to be answered, you would switch that to a checkbox. And then they can answer as many of those questions as you want. Okay, so that's the difference between checkboxes and multiple choice. Okay, if we had a lot of options here, you could change that to drop down. And then when you go into view the form, you can see that the options aren't on display. As soon as they click the drop down menu, the options come up. And so again, you would do that if you had a lot of options and it was taking up a huge amount of real estate on the actual form. You could ask a more open-ended question. Go back to my pencil. You could ask a more open-ended question. So again, just the plus sign and say, please provide an explanation as to why you did not attend the field trip. Okay, and so you might give them more space in terms of their response there. So a lot of teachers use this tool to as a form of assessment, and it's great. And so at this point, I'm going to ask another question. You could use it very easily to assess their application of a skill. So in art, you could ask them to identify the different types of color or brush strokes or mediums that are being used based on a picture that you've selected. So if we look, you can simply collect the add an image, and you can go into something you might have saved in your Google Drive, or you can search for one. We'll search for Google, and we'll take a look at Oh, just something really generic, paintings. Let's see what comes up. Okay, and we're going to click on that one and hit select. So you can see you can shrink that. That's awfully large. And so my question might be, please identify how the use of color adds to the emotion of the painting. So in this case, I'm asking the students to respond based on their understanding of the skills they already possess and applying it to a new piece of artwork which they have not seen. And I would then choose the appropriate response would be a paragraph because I'm asking them to provide an explanation. You could have done a series of short answer, and that could have been, what is evident in this picture or what is not evident, and given them 4 options and one of them is wrong or they could have done a multiple choice there. You could also do, let's ask a new question. You can also have a video. So you could have done a recording of the students learning in class and uploaded it to your drive and just simply added it by the URL, or you could do a video search. So let's go on YouTube and let's say, let's go intro to, or let's do volcanoes. Okay, so these are really long, but let's say you found, here's a good 3-minute video. Okay, you would play it first, obviously, to make sure it's appropriate. So you would have the students watch the video, and then you would ask them a question or a series of questions based on what video is embedded in the form. So what scientific reaction after a volcano has erupted? So I'm thinking maybe in a class, like a home ec class, you could do have a video of a student or doing a food prep, and then the form would have them assess the skills that were evident. Or in a shop class, you could have a video of a very disorganized, unsafe workplace and have the students describe the unsafe areas and what they would do to improve upon that. So there's lots of options of how you can ask questions. So this just goes more, this goes obviously well beyond just asking basic information. So if you're looking to gather facts and really quick data, great. Google Forms is awesome. But if you're looking to dig even deeper and embed this throughout your practice, you have the option of embedding a variety of tools there that can help you really dig deeper into the students' learning and to see what they've learned and how they're applying their knowledge to, and then it can inform your practice moving forward. So if you are like me and you're a connected educator, you might not be working on this Google form by yourself, and you might want to, or you might ask your students for feedback or your peers. It's very easy to do that. If you click on the 3 dots that are right to the left of your Google initial, you can add collaborators. And so at that point, like all things Google, it is set to a default of private. Nobody else has access to this form. You're the only one who can edit it and see it. If you simply click on change, there's a few options. You can put it public on the web. You can click anyone with the link, anyone just in Superior Greenstone District School Board, anyone in Superior Greenstone District School Board with the link, or off for specific people. Okay, so if you want to invite specific people, I'm going to invite Lindsay Costa and hit send. Lindsay would get this form in her Google Drive, and she could edit my work and add her own questions. And so again, we know that we are better if we collaborate because we have a lot of different ideas to draw from and strengths and skills. So it's very easy to collaborate with Google Forms. So again, just going to the 3 dots just to the left of your initial, and you add you can add your collaborators. At any time, when you want to see what your form looks like, simply click on the preview, the eye, and this is what your form looks like. And it happens to me all the time. I'm flying along, and then I realize, oops, I've forgotten a question, or I've done that question. It's too similar. I want to take it out. Or there's the option to insert a question, but I didn't actually insert anything. And so you can always go back and edit your form. So that's very handy. And the order, sometimes we forget to add a question, especially when you're just starting out. You might forget, oh, I forgot to ask the name or what school people are from, or regardless. It's very easy. If you just click on the question, you can see the little a diamond shape occurs. Maybe that's not the first question you want to ask. We seem to have somehow moved the first question I would have asked would be last name. I just simply click on the question and I drag it back up to the top and put it where it belongs. Okay, and I'll go back down and I'm going to look for the first name question and click on it and use my little scroll here and drag it back up. And I'm going to put it under last name. Okay, so nothing you do is ever carved in stone. You can always move things around. The next thing you want to do before you get ready to send it is to click on settings. And our board, because we're in the Superior Greenstone Google domain, it automatically restricts the people in participating to Superior Greenstone. And we are requiring a sign-in. That really makes it difficult for people, and it really doesn't open itself up to really being open educators. And a lot of our questions might go beyond the board. And so I always unclick that box. It's very rare that I would limit that to just Superior Greenstone District School Board users. And regardless, you're going to be sending out the link anyways, probably just to people that you want to have it. So there's really no reason to worry that someone outside of our board would have it. But so I unclick that box and then I hit save. Okay, so we know how to collaborate. We know the settings we need to do. How do we send this form to people? This is a little bit different than the other Google tools that we've looked at. The other Google Docs and Google Form or Google Slides, they all have a share button. That's what I always say. That's where the magic happens, in the share button. We don't have a blue share button when we look at our Google Forms. We actually have the word send, which is self-explanatory. So we click on send, and it gives us a few options. I always slide the bar over and I go to link, and it generates a link automatically for you. And what I do is, that's a really long, ugly URL. I shorten that URL, and then you can right click and copy or press Control-C, and then I send out an email saying, please participate in this form. The completion is set to be done by Friday, January 6th. And I share the link. Okay. So there's a lot more you can do with Google Forms, but we're just looking at the basics today. So I hope you found this useful. If you have any questions whatsoever, please don't hesitate to ask me. I will also be sharing the link to the resource that I developed for this PD in the email. So you'll both have the link to this recorded session as well as to the resources. And our next session will focus on enhancing Google Forms with add-ons that actually make it even easier to use. So thank you for participating, and I'll see you at the next session.